All right, let's talk about one of the most chilling short stories ever written, The Monkey's Paw. This thing is an absolute masterclass in suspense. And it's not scary because of ghosts or monsters. No, it's scary because it taps into that terrifying gap between what we wish for and what we actually get.
This line right here, this is the whole story in a nutshell. It's not just a warning from some old soldier. It's the theme, the central idea that just hangs over every single page. So, let's see exactly how that warning plays out for one, well, pretty unlucky family.
So, picture this. We've got the White family, Mr. and Mrs. White and their son Herbert. They're just enjoying a quiet, cozy night by the fire. Everything is completely normal. And then, their perfectly ordinary life gets turned upside down by a visitor, Sergeant Major Morris, an old friend who's just come back from his travels in India.
Okay, so after a few drinks, Morris, a bit reluctantly, pulls this strange thing out of his pocket. It's a dried, mummified monkey's paw. And he tells them this story about how a holy man in India put a spell on it. But get this, it wasn't to reward people. It was to prove a point about not meddling with fate.
Yeah, this little paw comes with a seriously grim track record. Think about this. The very first guy who owned it, his third and final wish was for death. That's how badly his first two wishes must have gone. And Morris himself, he's used his 3 wishes, and just the memory of it leaves him terrified. He warns them, the paw grants wishes in ways that seem like a coincidence, but are always, always horrible.
Morris is so convinced the paw is nothing but trouble that he just chucks it right into the fireplace. He's literally trying to save them from it. But Mr. White, on a total whim, he just can't help himself. He lunges and snatches it out of the flames. And right there, that's the moment their fate is sealed.
Even though Morris is practically begging him to throw it back in the fire, Mr. White is intrigued. He decides to keep it. And the instructions are so simple, right? Hold it up, say your wish out loud. But it's that unspoken third step, the warning of the consequences, that makes it all so incredibly chilling.
So, after Morris leaves, the family's fear kind of turns into this playful curiosity. They don't really truly believe this thing has any power, so they start joking around about what they could wish for. Mr. White says he can't even think of anything to wish for. He's happy, he's got everything he wants. But Herbert, his son, jokingly suggests, hey, wish for 200 pounds. It's not a greedy wish, it's just a small, sensible amount that would be enough to make that final mortgage payment. And that's where the horror begins. Not with greed, but with a perfectly reasonable desire. So, giving in to his son's prodding, feeling a little foolish, Mr. White holds the paw up, and he says the words, loud and clear, I wish for 200 pounds. Just for effect, Herbert plays a big dramatic chord on the piano. It's all a big joke. Well, the joke ends pretty quick. Mr. White lets out a cry and drops the paw. He's totally horrified, swearing that it moved, that it twisted in his hand like a snake. But, no money appears out of thin air, so the family just dismisses it as his imagination, and they all head off to bed. The next morning, the sun is shining and the whole paw incident is pretty much forgotten. The family's actually laughing about how scared they got the night before, chalking it all up to a silly soldier's story. But that mood shifts, and it shifts fast. A well-dressed man appears at their gate, but he seems hesitant, almost scared to come in. He paces back and forth before finally walking up the path, and you can just feel that he's bringing bad news. And he does. He delivers the most devastating news you can imagine. There was an accident at the factory. Herbert is dead. The man explains in a low voice that he was caught in the machinery. And then comes the final, soul-crushing blow. The company, while not admitting any fault, wants to offer the family some compensation for their loss. The amount? 200 pounds. The exact sum they wished for, delivered in the most natural and the most horrific way possible. So a week passes. Herbert is buried, and the house is just swallowed by this hopeless, silent grief. The light is gone, and the couple is left with nothing but sorrow and that cursed money. And then, one night, Mrs. White is hit with this sudden, hysterical idea. They still have 2 wishes left. And this, right here, is where you see grief just completely shatter logic. It creates this desperate hope that is so much more terrifying than despair.
Mr. White is horrified. He remembers the state of his son's body after the accident, how he was so mutilated they could only identify him by his clothes. He knows what would be coming back, but his wife's grief is just unstoppable. She doesn't care what he looks like. She just wants her son back.
So, cornered by his wife's desperate pleading, a trembling Mr. White is forced to do it. He picks up the paw and makes that foolish, wicked second wish. He says the words, and the talisman just falls to the floor.
They wait in a long, dead silence, and then they hear it. A knock at the door. It's quiet at first, then it comes again, louder, and then again and again, growing more violent, more insistent, just this furious pounding.
Mrs. White is convinced it's Herbert, somehow back from the cemetery 2 miles away. She races to let him in, but her husband is terrified of what's on the other side of that door. He's desperately groping in the dark, trying to find that monkey's paw one last time.
As his wife scrapes a chair over to reach the top bolt on the door, Mr. White finds it. He can hear the bolt creaking back. The door is just about to swing open, and in that split second of pure panic, he breathes his third and final wish.
And just like that, silence. The violent knocking just stops. It's so abrupt, the echoes seem to hang in the air. A cold wind rushes up the stairs as Mrs. White finally gets the door open. Mr. White runs to his wife's side, and she just lets out this long, loud wail of disappointment and misery. She's opened the door to find absolutely nothing there. The wish was granted. And that's what the story leaves us with, right? It forces us to ask ourselves, is it better to just accept your life, the good and the bad, or risk everything for a chance to change it? For the Whites, the answer was just silence and a quiet, deserted road.